St. Augustine commentary on the first letter of John, chapter 4, verse 17 to 21 following. In this is his love perfected in us, that we may have boldness in the day of judgment. Why shall we have boldness? Because as he is, are we also in this world. You have heard the ground of your boldness. Because as he is, says the apostle, are we also in this world. Does he not seem to have said something impossible? For is it possible for man to be as God? I have already expounded to you that as is not always said of equality, but is said of a certain resemblance. For how do you say, as I have ears, so has my image? Is it quite so? And yet you say, so as. If then we were made after God's image, why are we not so as God? Not unto equality, but relatively to our measure. Whence then are we given boldness in the day of judgment? Because as he is, are we also in this world. We must refer this to the same charity and understand what is meant. The Lord in the Gospel said, if you love them that love you, what reward shall you have? Do not the publicans this? Matthew chapter 5, verse 44 to 46. Then what would he have us do? But I say unto you, love your enemies, and pray for them that persecute you. If then he bids us love our enemies, whence brings he an example to set before us? From God himself, for he said, that you may be the children of your Father which is in heaven. How does God this? He loves his enemies, who makes his sun to rise upon the good and the bad, and rains upon the just and the unjust. If this then be the perfection unto which God invites us, that we love our enemies as he loved his, this is our boldness in the day of judgment, that as he is, so are we also in this world. Because as he loves his enemies in making his sun to rise upon good and bad, and in sending rain upon the just and unjust, so we, since we can bestow upon them sun and rain, bestow upon them our tears when we pray for them. Now therefore, concerning this same boldness, let us see what he says. Whence do we understand that charity is perfect? There is no fear in charity. 1 John chapter 4, verse 18. Then, what say we of him that has begun to fear the day of judgment? If charity in him were perfect, he would not fear. For perfect charity would make perfect righteousness, and he would have nothing to fear. Nay, rather, he would have something to desire, that iniquity may pass away, and God's kingdom come. So then, there is no fear in charity, but in what charity? Not in charity begun. In what then? But perfect charity, said he, casts out fear. Then let fear make the beginning, because the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Fear, so to say, prepares a place of charity. But when once charity has begun to inhabit, the fear which prepared the place for it is cast out. For in proportion as this increases, that decreases, and the more this comes to be within, is the fear cast out. Greater charity, less fear. Less charity, greater fear. But if no fear, there is no way for charity to come in. As we see in sewing, the thread is introduced by means of the bresson. The bristle first enters, but except it come out, the thread does not come into its place. So fear first occupies the mind, but the fear does not remain there, because it enters only in order to introduce charity. When once there is the sense of security in the mind, what joy have we both in this world and in the world to come? Even in this world, who shall hurt us, being full of charity? See how the Apostle exalts concerning this very charity. Who shall separate us from the charity of Christ? Shall tribulation or distress or persecution, or famine or nakedness or peril or sword? Romans chapter 8 verse 35. And Peter said, "And who is he that will harm you, if you be followers of that which is good?" There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear, because fear has torment. The consciousness of sins torments the heart. Justification has not yet taken place. There is that in it which itches, which pricks. Accordingly in the psalm, what said he concerning the same perfection of righteousness? You have turned for me my mourning into joy. You have put off my sackcloth and girded me with gladness, to the end that my glory may sing to you, and that I be not pricked. What is this, that I be not pricked? Psalm 30 verse 11 and 12. That there be not that which shall goad my conscience. Fear does goad, but fear not you. Charity enters in, and she heals the wound that fear inflicts. The fear of God so wounds as does the least knife. It takes away the rottenness and seems to make the wound greater. Behold, when the rottenness was in the body, the wound was less but perilous. Then comes the knife, the wound smarted less than it smarts now, while the leech is cutting it. It smarts more while he is operating upon it than it would if it were not operated upon. It smarts more under the healing operation, but only that it may never smart when the healing is effected. Then let fear occupy your heart, and that it may bring in charity. Let the cicatrice succeed to the least knife. He is such an healer that the cicatrices do not even appear. Only do you put yourself under his hand. For if you be without fear, you can't be justified. It is a sentence pronounced by the Scriptures. For he that is without fear can't be justified. Ecclesiasticus chapter 1 verse 28. Needs then must fear first enter in, that by it charity may come. Fear is the healing operation, charity the sound condition. But he that fears is not made perfect in love. Why? Because fear has torment, just as the cutting of the surgeon's knife has torment. But there is another sentence which seems contrary to this if it have not one that understands. Namely, it is said in a certain place of the Psalms, "The fear of the Lord is chaste, enduring forever." Psalm 19 verse 9. He shows us an eternal fear, but a chaste. But if he there shows us an eternal fear, does this epistle perchance contradict him when it said, "There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear"? Let us interrogate both utterances of God. One is the Spirit, thou the books too, thou the mouth too, thou the tongues too. For this is said by the mouth of John, that by the mouth of David. But think not that the Spirit is more than one. If one breath fills two pipes of the double flute, can't one spirit fill two hearts, move two tongues? But if two pipes filled by one breathing sound in unison, can two tongues filled with the spirit of or breathing of God make a dissonance? There is then an unison there is a harmony, only it requires one that can hear. Behold, this Spirit of God has breathed into and filled two hearts, has moved two tongues, and we have heard from the one tongue. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. We have heard from the other, the fear of the Lord is chaste, enduring forever. How is this? The notes seem to jar. Not so. Rouse your ears, mark the melody. It is not without cause that in the one place there is added that word, chaste. In the other it is not added. But because there is one fear which is called chaste, and there is another fear which is not called chaste. Let us mark the difference between these two fears, and so understand the harmony of the flutes. How are we to understand or how to distinguish? Mark, my beloved, there are men who fear God, lest they be cast into hell, lest haply they burn with the devil in everlasting fire. This is the fear which introduces charity, but it comes that it may depart. For if you as yet fear God because of punishments, not yet do you love him whom you in such sort fear. You do not desire the good things, but are afraid of the evil things. Yet because you are afraid of the evil things, you correct yourself and begin to desire the good things. When once you have begun to desire the good, there shall be in you the chaste fear. What is the chaste fear? The fear lest you lose the good things themselves. Mark, it is one thing to fear God lest he cast you into hell with the devil, and another thing to fear God lest he forsake you. The fear by which you fear lest you be cast into hell with the devil is not yet chaste, for it comes not from the love of God, but from the fear of punishment. But when you fear God lest his presence forsake you, you embrace him, you long to enjoy God himself.